Tonight on GamePoints 392, Gearbox has been sold to Take-Two, Relic is now on its own, and GameStop seems to be near death. All of that and more in just a moment, but first I want everyone here to know this is an audience interactive podcast. So if you're watching live here at Twitch TV/GamePoints, or later at any myriad video hosting platforms, please feel free to do what every streamer wants. Likes, bits, follow, share, subs, engage with the content with questions, comments, concerns, etc. I want to know what you guys out there think. Let's go ahead and jump right into the first topic of the night here. If I can find it. There we go. Right here, a PR bulletin from Take-Two itself announcing that they are acquiring Gearbox Entertainment from the Embracer Group. We're not going to read through this entire thing and go through all of its legalese. We're just going to kind of stick to the bullet points here, most of which are out the gate. First of all, the transaction was valued at $460 million and expected to close fiscal year 2025. Important to note, Embracer bought Gearbox for $1.4 billion. That means Embracer took an almost $1 billion hit on the purchase of Gearbox. No word on how much money Randy Pitchford got from was able to pocket from that, and essentially has now just been resold to someone else for a third of what its original cost was. To say that is damning on Embracer's ineptitude is an understatement. $1 billion wasted not a scant few years after that bloated whale of a company picked up Gearbox for reasons unknown. All of the result of being sold back because a Saudi crown prince decided to pull out of a $2 billion deal. That's how financially strapped for cash Embracer was and is. That they had to eat a $1 billion loss. That said, it seems like Take-Two might be making out like bandits here. The press release does state that they are in active development on the next Borderlands, be it Borderlands 4 or pre-sequel 2 or any number of things that's going to be set something in the Borderlands universe. So that is currently coming, as well as 6 games in development. Now, we don't really know if Embracer kept in the IP, but it certainly seems like Gearbox kept all of their games with them. But what we do know with the upcoming sequels is that one of them is going to be from Borderlands, which they announced earlier. Or, I'm sorry. 5, let me start over again. 6 key interactive entertainment projects. Sorry, legalese be very tricky to read sometimes because it never really flows off the tongue. 5 sequels. Of those 6, 5 of them are sequels. 1 Borderlands and 1 from Homeworld. Homeworld 3, of course, coming out somewhat soon-ish. And Borderlands, who knows wherever that could be. The other 2 are going, or the other 3 of those 5, we don't know, but there is going to be 1 new IP being created. It could be something great, or it could be Battleborn. We have no idea when it comes to Gearbox. So, if Gearbox is making 6 games, we know Borderlands, Homeworld, and then something new, and then they have 3 more coming in established IP, what could those 3 be? No idea. Hey there, Ninja Wolf. Good to have you here. What's Gearbox and Take-Two? Is Take-Two another name for its Take-Two? No. Gearbox is a developer, and Take-Two is a publisher. That's what those are. They're 2 separate, they're 2 companies. So let's spitball on what these could be. So the press release does name drop Risk of Rain, Brothers in Arms, Duke Nukem. I do think that those were named specifically because if you take in Homeworld, Borderlands, Risk of Rain, Brothers in Arms, Duke Nukem, those are 5 games that are already in existence. That could be sequels right there. However, note that they do separate Borderlands and Tiny Tina's Wonderlands as 2 separate franchises as well. I would think that Risk of Rain 3 probably is in development, at the very least a DLC content drop. Keep in mind the way legalese works is that could be considered a sequel, depending on lawyer speak. We're not really too sure what they mean by that exactly. I have a very, very hard time that they could bring Duke Nukem back. I can't believe that they would be able to bring that back given the current political climate. Let's see. Let's turn in chat here. Duke Nukem, that's an old IP. Never played it, so it could be either a sequel or a remaster. The press release does say sequels. So I doubt it's a remaster. And honestly, if they were to remaster older Duke Nukems, I can see that being handed off to a different studio, like, say, Night Dive or something like that. Brothers in Arms. Now, Brothers in Arms has been teased for years at Gearbox. They were going to do that ill-fated Furious 4, which was kind of like a very cartoony, slapsticky version of it. That got the axe years and years ago. But Randy Pitchford has been very adamant about his love for that series. I could see that coming back. We're no longer in that weird time where World War II games are just coming out of every corner right now. So we could see a return to Baker. I think it's Baker, Matt Baker's squad. I don't know if it's Baker's squad as well. But we could see a return to that. It'd be very interesting to see if they pick it up from where the third game, I believe, in that franchise left off. Because it was one continuing storyline. Although it's been so long at this point, I can also just see them rebooting the entire franchise. Though I would love to see what happened with those people, because that was actually a pretty engrossing World War II story. Homeworld, we know we have Homeworld 3 coming up. In Borderlands, you have to... There's no way it can be like a pre-sequel style thing. It has to be proper Borderlands 4, right? Either way, I think that's a franchise a lot of us are kind of done with. It really does feel like Borderlands is just out of its time. Not out of time, but out of its time these days. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about what these games could be. But while we are on the topic of Embracer, let's go ahead and go to this article here from gamesindustry.biz. By the way, the link to this and all the topic stories we're talking about are going to be posted down below in the description or over on the Discord server, which its link is down there as well. Embracer CEO says restructuring is over. No other studios are for sale. Cool. That means maybe the employee bleeding will also stop. The layoffs should be coming to an end. But I'll believe it when I see it. Keep in mind they said restructuring, which means just their initial wave of trying to get grounded is over. As I have gone off quite a bit, this year is going to be a bloodbath when it comes to the economic side of things. Video games aren't excluded from that. So while they might now be finished with restructuring, there could be more layoffs in the future. I hope not. I hope they've cut deep enough to keep that from happening. But we'll see. To the article itself. Lars Winkfors, the CEO of Embracer Group, has declared an end to the group's lengthy restructuring process that resulted in the loss of 1,400 jobs and closure of 3 studios. In an investor call following last week's $460 million sale of Borderlands developer Gearbox, Winkfors told investors, quote, "Now we are ending the restructuring program at the end of March, and we're looking toward the future." He also added that divestments of Saber and Active Gearbox are 2 very important milestones in this process. They're essentially shedding properties and studios. Excuse me. Rock Paper Shotgun reported that he also said Embracer was not planning to sell any more of its businesses. Well, necessity might change that, but at the moment they seem to be stabilized. Going forward, Winkfors said that Embracer would, quote, "like to focus around IPs and projects where we capture the most economic upside when we deploy capital on our most valuable assets, meaning games developers." Finally, Rock Paper Shotgun reported that Winkfors dismissed the idea that Embracer would resume its aggressive M&A strategy anytime soon. So Winkfors is saying we are not going to be going around buying everything up that we can grab our hands on. One of the reasons why Embracer found itself in such a problem to begin with is because they didn't see an abandoned IP they didn't immediately fall in love with. At one time, this company had over 60 games in development, half of which have probably now been canceled and we'll never hear from again. We know more than a lion's show of them have gotten the axe, and we will just never know what those could have been at one time. I would love to see the internals on that, so that way we can get an idea of what they were making at one time. Maybe one time. Take a look at chat here. The digital market video games have definitely been hit ridiculously hard due to economic troubles. I hope that things can stabilize so that no more game studios have to be sold, shut down, dismantled. I hate to break it to you, but this is Last year was the year of layoffs. This is going to be the year of closures. The number one goal in every publisher's mind is simply survive 2024. It is going to make, in my opinion, not financial advice, but it's going to make 2023 look tame in comparison. And I think we're only getting started. Embracer just happened to be the canary in the coal mine, and they might actually make it through 2024 relatively unscathed at this point because they've already cut all their fat. Back to the article about Lars Ringford's M&A propositions, he said the following: I think it's way too early to start talking about restarting the M&A engines again. We're now in the late phases of consideration into the future of the group, and that's our highest focus and priority. How we set ourselves up, structure ourselves, and utilize our assets we have within the group, and how to work them together, and how we leverage them working together, utilizing different functions. I think that is our focus right now, to increase profitability and cash flow generation by simply making better products and games. That was one sentence. This man needs to actually take breaks between what he says. Now, you don't have to stand corrected. That's just my opinion. I very well could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. So, is Embracer finally on steady ground again, or is it yet another house of cards built upon a sand dune? Just because Wingfur says they're done restructuring, I don't think they are. Or at least when he says they're done restructuring, they might be done with plan 1 or the initial go-around. Keep in mind, they started this process about a year ago. They might have to cut more. So I would not necessarily breathe a sigh of relief if you find yourself working for any studio currently under the Embracer group. It is going to be a very long and difficult process for them. Turn to chat one more time here. All European-based game companies might get through relatively unscathed. Any developers I can see getting hit the absolute hardest, and maybe I can see some small game development companies close the doors, calling it now. The only thing that won't be affected is Steam itself. Well, Steam's not a publisher. Steam is a market. Well, Steam is a developer and a marketplace. They're not a publisher. And I know that if you aren't in the weeds, those terms might seem interchangeable, but there is a difference there. As far as European game companies, from what I understand, and once again, could be wrong, this is not something I looked into. From what I understand, the European economic situation is even more dire than that in America at the moment. A lot of games get various funding through governmental agencies in Europe, and that money is drying up. In addition to just getting it the traditional way through banks, etc. So I get the feeling that the European game developers might be having an issue. Now, as far as Nintendo goes, which was also brought up, Nintendo just marches to the beat of its own drum. Nintendo has an enormous liquid cash reserve that it can tap into to weather such a thing. Sony and Microsoft, as video game console manufacturers, could go belly up. Nintendo would still be there because they just have so much cash on hand. They do just the way that business is run. So they can weather these these weird and turbulent economic times way better than any console manufacturer, publisher, or developer possibly could. And Nintendo being both publisher, developer, and console maker, so they're all three. Nintendo should be fine, given just what I know about them. But once again, don't take my word for it. It could go belly up tomorrow. These are just my opinions, and I think they're going to ring true, but we'll see. Anyways, let me, the joys of doing a live show, 1 second. Let me cough there. I don't think Xbox or Sony are going to go bye-bye, to be clear. They're going to stick around. Those are massive, massive corporations. They can take a beating. But what you might see is a huge bleeding off of talent, studio shut down. We're going to have some insight into what Sony thinks here from this article from VGC, as Hiroki Totoki takes over from Jim Ryan, who was the CEO of Sony PlayStation and has since stepped down. Hiroki Totoki is officially taken over as interim CEO until a more permanent CEO can be found for PlayStation. to the article from Video Game Chronicle itself. It was announced in September 2023 that then CEO Jim Ryan would be stepping down, with Hiroki Totoki taking over April 1st, 2024. By the way, stepping down is a nice way to put it. I am firmly in the belief that he was fired for a myriad of reasons we won't necessarily get into right here. But I will say that the live service drive that Ryan was trying to push that didn't really seem to materialize was probably one of the big reasons why, in my opinion. Back to the article. Ryan has now officially left the company, with Totoki stepping in to oversee the PlayStation division while keeping his current role at Sony Group while a more permanent successor to Ryan is found. Although his interim CEO role officially starts today, Totoki had already started visiting studios in recent months and has already made his views on Sony's gaming strategy clear. In February, during a Q&A session following Sony's latest financial results briefing, Totoki said he wants Sony to be aggressive when it comes to improving its gaming division's profit margins, which he says can partly be achieved with a greater focus on bringing first-party games to PC. Sony, for the longest time, was very hesitant to put their first-party titles on Steam because they wanted to sell PlayStations. I get it. It makes sense to a degree. However, you are just going to be excluding a massive user base of people who are just never going to buy a console. I don't care how good Ghost of Tsushima is, or Horizon is, or Days Gone, a game that I love but got middling reviews, admittedly. There's millions of people out there who are just not going to buy a console. They have Steam. They have a decent computer. Why would they? Which is why you've been seeing more and more PlayStation exclusives popping up on Steam. If Totoki wants to be very aggressive, and he's openly saying we're going to be bringing more first-party games to PC, I would expect every first-party Sony game to eventually make their way to PC. Horizon, Days Gone, Ghost of Tsushima, God of War, maybe even some of their older back catalog popping up on there as well. It'll be interesting to see if they bring over Killzone or something like that for a dirt cheap price. Final Fantasy Rebirth. I know that Remake is already on Steam. Rebirth will be out there exclusive next year. That seems to be the way Sony wants to do it, by the way. Release the game and then wait a year and release it on PC. Some kind of a timed exclusive. Ninja Wolf in chat's saying, looks like we might be seeing a re-release of a lot of older first-party games in Steam. Yeah, they just dropped Horizon, I think Forbidden West. I know the old Horizon is on there. I think they put the second one on there recently. Ghost of Tsushima, I believe, is imminent or just came out. Not positive on the top of my head. But yeah, they'll be bringing over everything that they can, since that seems to be Hiroki Totoki's big driving force, is getting stuff on PC. Be very interested to see if they can do something with PlayStation VR 2 on Steam as well. I'd like to see if something like that can happen. It might be too much. It might be too much of a impracticality given hardware restrictions, but it does seem that both Steam, which we were talking about earlier, and Sony are working a little closer and closer together. There was a moment there where it almost seemed possible to have Half-Life Alyx come over to PlayStation VR 2. In fact, I was even making that as a prediction on one of our yearly prediction shows that we used to do. But that just never came to be. As far as the older PlayStation 2 stuff goes, I don't think so. So I wouldn't necessarily expect things like God of War Trilogy. When I said Killzone, I was thinking Shadowfall. But and that would just be a long stretch. I know that Uncharted came out, or at least the newest Uncharted is on there. I don't know if... I think the Uncharted trilogy is on there as well. But if you're looking for the old original God of War and stuff like that, I don't know. It's hard to say. It's definitely in the cards. Back to the article. Enough pontificating. Addressing a question asking why the game division has been seeing an increase in gross income but not profits, Totoki made it clear that he feels re-releasing games multi-platform, which he seemingly clarified as PC, continues to be the way forward. A little bit of an interesting revelation there. Games are making more money this year than they have in a long time. Income, money that they're bringing in, is going up. But the amount of money it takes to make these things is also increasing. So while they might say things like bigger than Hollywood, multi-billion-dollar industry, there seems to be no growth as far as actual cash in pocket. it's nebulous growth. For example, if I sell something for $10, if I make something for $10 and sell it for 100, that's a $90 profit. Cool. If I make something for $1 million and sell it for $1,000,090, I've made $1 million that year. But in reality, my profit's only 90. There's no budgets are going out of control. Inflation's eating into this stuff, by the way. So yeah, there's just and as budgets get bigger and bigger and bigger, every game released is riskier and riskier and riskier because you want a decently high return on investment on it. And if you're not getting profits equivalent to that risk, people start pulling out their shares, people start de-investing in your company. Problem. So I can see why one solution to that would be releasing your game on as many places as you can, which is why I also think one day you might see things like Game Pass on PlayStation as well. Or Sony games on Game Pass. Survive 2024 is going to be the mantra. And that means by any means necessary, which is going to lead to some unusual alliances that you would not normally expect to see happen. Once again, back to the article itself. Excuse me. Where was I wanting to look up? Right here. In an official translation of the Q&A provided by Sony, Toki said that while he was impressed by Bungie's ability as a video game developer, he felt it could make improvements from a business perspective. Totoki said the following. I visited Bungie Studios and had meetings with the management. And I saw employees working at the studios are highly motivated, showing great creativity as well as impressive knowledge of live services. However, I also felt there was room for improvement from a business perspective with regard to areas such as the use of business expenses and assuming accountability for development timelines. I hope to continue with dialogue and come up with some good solutions. Bungie's fucked. When your CEO, interim or not, is openly criticizing you, and keep in mind that is what this is, a criticism, saying that your management is, for lack of a better term, to paraphrase what he said here, run by imbeciles, it could make improvements from a business perspective. That is the most polite way of calling out upper management at Bungie that you could possibly do, and it comes with just a Japanese company. That's just how they're going to act. But the fact that he was compelled to make that statement public, in my opinion, shows how perilous Bungie is as an independent unit. Now, I know they're owned by Sony, but remember, they have in their contract written that Sony management can come and just take over. And I do believe that is what this is signaling, is that Sony is going to pull the trigger on that, get rid of upper management and replace it with their own people, or at the very least, push them into a dark corner somewhere. They could have written in their contracts that they can't be terminated. Who knows? But Bungie is in trouble. Remember one of the maxims of this show. If numbers are good, or information is good, we're going to expand a little bit, the company won't shut up about it. If it's bad, they don't talk about it at all. There's an addendum to that statement. If they are forced to address it, it is significantly more dire than they say it is. Bungie screwed. Moving on to another just hard shift in topic, but all business. Most of this is going to be business-related news today. Relic Entertainment. We mentioned them earlier with the Gearbox buyout with Homeworld. They're independent now. They are leaving Sega, who is currently suffering their own financial woes as well, having to fire something like 240 employees, I believe, including from studios from Creative Assembly and Hardlight. To the statement made on X by Relic. We have an important announcement for our players and fans. With an external investor, Relic Entertainment would become independently run development studio. This is a huge change for us, but one thing does not change. We want to create amazing experiences for our players. To our fans, we want to assure you that we will continue to support titles, including Company Heroes 3, where you're looking forward to the 1.6 update in April, loaded with new content and features requested from our community. We want to thank Sega, whose support over the years and guidance during this transition have been instrumental to our success. We may be out of the Sega business, but we remain friends and colleagues. We're excited about this next chapter for Relic, and we hope you all join us creating new experiences for our fans worldwide. I want to clarify one thing here, by the way. I kind of started getting my companies confused. Relic used to make Homeworld. The new Homeworld 3, is being developed by Blackbird Interactive, I believe, which is a studio created by a bunch of people who used to work at Relic. Started getting my heritage mixed up. Relic, famously known for Company of Heroes, as well as Dawn of War and, well, Homeworld, but Gearbox owns that license. So when I connected these two through the Gearbox story earlier, I shouldn't have. That was my mistake. Sounds like some angel investor came in, bailed out Relic. They probably wish to remain anonymous. They're going to get some kind of cut of what Relic makes. I get the distinct feeling that Sega was forced with a shut the studio down or sell them off situation. Or Relic was told, you can either become your own studio, you better figure it out and find funding on your own, or we could just fire all of you. Which one would you like? What IP Relic is going to be able to keep? Don't know. It certainly seems like they're going to be on a contract with Sega, at least to continue to develop Company of Heroes 3 for at least a short-term future. But what they have for long-term goals, we have no idea. I doubt they're going to be walking away with the Dawn of War IP. I doubt they'll be walking away with the Company of Heroes IP. Those are probably now Sega's. For now, until the end of time. Relic, however, has cut their chops on real-time strategy for a long time. I'm hoping that they stick to that, even if it is somewhat of a, let us say, niche genre these days. The days of StarCraft 2 being preeminent as a PC game are long behind it. So that genre, while I love it, not really that big. However, if they are able to maintain an independent status, they can create smaller titles and hopefully something good. Hopefully they can do something along the lines of what Petroglyph did. Petroglyph being a company founded by a bunch of Westwood studio people, and when EA shut that down, killing the Command & Conquer franchise in its wake, all those people who essentially created the RTS genre created Petroglyph, and they have had decent enough success to stay open on their own for many a year now. I'd imagine Relic would go the same way. Smaller productions, nowhere as big as budget, but hopefully having a lot more heart than they would have working with a major publisher. We'll see. Best of luck to everyone at Relic. I hope you guys make a banger, and I hope it comes out soon, because you're going to need the cash, especially with what's coming up. More business-related stuff on this very, very business-focused episode of GamePoints. From GameStop here, or GameSpot rather, Ubisoft lays off 45 workers in latest wave. They kind of just quietly did this, and it took some digging to finally find out, and then the media outlets reached out and said, yeah, we're getting rid of some people, to the article itself. Ubisoft have confirmed that cut 45 positions as part of the latest round of cuts. Job cuts were in efforts to reorganize our global publishing, Central, and Asia-Pacific structures to enhance our collective efficiency. GameSpot reached out to Ubisoft, who provided the following statement. Over the past few months, every team within Ubisoft is exploring ways to streamline our operations and enhance our collective efficiency so that we are better positioned for success in the long term. In this context, today we announced we are further reorganizing our global publishing, Central, and APAC structure. I believe that is Asian Pacific, APAC, structures to adapt them to the market evolution with a more efficient and agile approach. Those changes will impact 45 positions overall. These are not decisions to be taken lightly, and providing comprehensive support for our impacted colleagues. We also want to share our utmost gratitude and respect for their many contributions to the company. Please, for the love of God, when you lay people off, stop acting like they're family. Stop pretending you give a fuck. Just go, yes, we had to terminate 45 positions because we just didn't have the money. This whole... I hate this corporate text so goddamn much. We're big boys. We can handle it. Just tell us layoffs are happening. We don't need 7 or 8 statements to say we're letting 4 or 5 people go. We don't... What was this crap? Streamline our operations and enhance our collective efficiency. Who the fuck talks like that? That's not a lawyer. But of course, these statements are written by lawyers. I hate it so much. I hate corpo language. It just bugs me to know. 45 positions for a company like Ubisoft. That's actually very, very tiny. I can see why they didn't feel the need to make an announcement of this, because that is a drop in the bucket compared to everyone who works at Ubisoft. Remember, this is a company that has studios worldwide: United States, France, Canada, multiple South Pacific countries, multiple European studios. They are massive. And also a company that I think is in more trouble than anyone realizes. We haven't heard much from Ubisoft. I think they're due for a huge, huge round of layoffs. Now, they've laid off people piecemeal here and there. I think they're due for a big one. I think Ubisoft is one of the companies that might actually disappear. Not necessarily disappear in 2024, but get the Embracer treatment. We'll see how that shakes out. There's a lot to be said about the fact that Ubisoft, I believe, is still majority owned by the same family, the Guillemot family. And their hubris and arrogance can push a company forward for a long time before they start realizing, hey, maybe we need to fucking right the ship here. You can do a lot on willpower alone. But eventually reality does catch up with you. Take a look at chat here again. I'm going to guess that Ubisoft's stance on game ownership, I'm going to guess that with Ubisoft's game stance on ownership, I can see them being one of the first few companies to close down. Also, calling your employees or families are really, really dumb, not going to lie. Yeah, I hate... We need to return to a more adversarial position with corporations. I'm not saying that you need to go out and unionize and all that. I don't think unions typically do good for a lot of people. Case in point of Sony. They unionized, or not Sony, Sega. They unionized and immediately 200 and, what did I just say, 240 employees were fired on the day they announced unionization. All unionizing is typically going to do, maybe give you a couple months more extra severance, if that. That's not even going to come up with the fact that you have to pay your dues and you're usually forced to join them in many positions. I mean, knock yourself out, unionize if you want to. I'm not... You do you. I just typically think it's a bad idea, especially in the video game industry, which is a global industry. Cool. California workers unionized in a California studio. Awesome. Don't be surprised when that studio suddenly gets moved to Shanghai, Singapore. Just the reality of the situation these days. That said, this idea that a company is your family is fucking stupid. They're not. You should have an adversarial, mercenary style opinion of the place you work for. They are not there to get your back. They're not going to be there when you get married. They're not going to hold your hand when you're sick. You do a job for them. Milk them for as much money as you can get, and fully expect that when that job is done, the contract is over and you might have to look for someone else for employment. Go in with a mercenary mind. You are not here to make friends with the company. You are here to get paid by them. And if more people started doing that, I think some of these weird business issues would definitely sort themselves out. Back to chat again. In your eyes, kitchen crews and smaller restaurants are more familiar than corporate offices. Yeah, agreed. There's something to be said about just smaller places anyways. All right, we have two more stories that are gaming related. I say gaming related. They're directly gaming related, but they're going to be about things that are just oddities. For example, the Playdate. We go to GameStop for this one about how $400,000 worth of Playdate game consoles just disappeared. This feels like it's either a... I have no idea how you just lose $400,000 of inventory. And I think that if anyone has any financial ties to the people who make Playdate, you might want to consider cutting those financial ties if that is what is happening. To the article itself. Excuse me. No one at Panic, the company behind Playdate console, knows exactly what happened to two pallets stacked to $400,000 worth of palm-sized portable, but the circumstances around their recent disappearance in Las Vegas certainly sound suspicious. The article goes on about like some supposition what could have happened, how FedEx might have dropped off the wrong pallets at the wrong place nearby. But long story short, they don't know. If I was an investor in Panic, I would be demanding the heads of people for losing $400,000 worth of fucking merchandise and not being able to track it down. The Playdate itself is that stupid little yellow console, by the way, with the handle on the end. Let me see if they got a picture of it on this article here. Probably not. Just Google Playdate. It's going to be really awkward looking. It kind of looks a little bit like a yellow Game Boy with a crank on the side, which is totally meant just to have people talk about that there's a crank on the side. It's 100% meant to drive conversation. I always felt this thing was stupid, but it actually sold decently well. I don't think they're doing gangbusters, but I think they're making enough to stay afloat. $400,000 hit might change that, though. I can't imagine they're making too much money on this goddamn thing. I'm going to mute one more time. Live show. And the final story. GameStop faces unsustainable sales decline, cuts jobs to control costs. Now, I know I have been saying GameStop has been dying for years now at this point, and yet somehow the corpse of it keeps shambling on like some undead monster looking for brains. But it really does feel like the end is nigh finally for this company. And it's a little bit bittersweet. I used to work at a GameStop back in my retail days. In fact, the GameStop that I worked at, somewhat local to where I live at right now, closed its doors a couple days ago. A lot of memories associated with that building. I was at 3 different GameStops for a period of 2 years. And over the past 5 years, all 3 of those locations have gone away. It makes sense because I don't remember the last time I was in a GameStop. You can just do it all online nowadays, be it digital or buying it on Amazon. And they've gotten really good at giving you your game the day it comes out if you buy it physical. Anyways, to the article from Reuters itself. Video game retailer GameStop said on Tuesday, today, it had cut an unspecified number of jobs to reduce costs and reported lower fourth quarter revenue amid rising competition from e-commerce firms and weak consumer spending in an uncertain economy. Shares of the Grapevine, Texas-based company tumbled 16% in the extended trading hours. That is huge, by the way. That is such a giant drop. By the way, not today, a week ago from today. Sorry. GameStop's recent cost reduction measures also include an exit from its operations in Ireland, Switzerland, and Austria. They've just completely pulled out of those countries. No more GameStops in Ireland, no more GameStops in Switzerland, no more GameStops in Austria. They are rapidly shrinking to try to make up for shortfalls in income, which in turn is preventing how much income limiting how much income they can make because they have fewer stores to reach out to more people, which in turn means you may get less income, which means you have to shut down stores. It is now in a death spiral. Everything that they have tried has failed. They tried the NFT thing, it didn't work. They tried going retro, it didn't work. They tried to go like big online e-commerce store, it didn't work. As of February the 3rd, the company had about 8,000 full-time salary and hourly associates, and between 1,300 and 1,800 part-time hourly associates worldwide. That compares to 11,000 full-time salaried and hourly employees between 14 and 27 part-time hourly employees in 2023. That means in 1 year, they have lost 3,000 full-time employees and between 1 and 9,000 part-time employees. Over 10,000 jobs gone. That's how deep the layoffs at GameStop has been. Wedbush Securities analyst Michael Proctor said the following. An increasing mix of digital downloads is hurting physical retail, and there's simply no reason to go to a store if a consumer can just order a game and download it immediately. I suspect that they'll keep trimming costs to generate break even or better, but it is inevitable that their sales will decline to an unsustainable level. Yeah, GameStop's done. I have no idea how they can save any brick and mortar store at this point. I fully expect the vast majority of GameStops to close down over the next year or two. Admittedly, I've been saying this for a couple years now, and it has been happening for a couple years now. It's just not at the rate I thought it was going to. I can see them having maybe one or two boutique stores set up across the country. I don't see the name GameStop itself going away. I can see them rebranding to like an online only store, going full e-commerce. Because there will always, if you can get rid of all of your brick and mortar stores, and it's going to take time, and it's going to be very costly, and it's going to, that 8,000 full-time salary, you're going to have to reduce that to like 2. If you go full e-commerce, you might be able to get away with becoming a niche video game seller that specializes in getting physical copies to your door on release day. But beyond that, and they're already facing competition from Amazon on that, by the way. So they're already behind the 8 ball on that one. Beyond that, GameStop is pointless to exist. The used game business, people would rather buy digital and have the convenience of not going anywhere than save $5 or $10 on the game. That's just the long and the short of it. If I'm already spending $70 on a game, why am I going to drive 15 to 30 minutes to a GameStop and buy it used, meaning 1, I have to wait till a used copy come in, and 2, only save $5 on it, when I could just take that $5, save it in fucking gas, and buy it at home, and have it at my fingertips whenever I want to play it. GameStop is going to go the way of Hollywood Video and Blockbuster. And as someone who used to work there, that there is some nostalgia there for sure. I also worked, interestingly enough, at a Hollywood Video. There is something nostalgic about those places. But like so many things you get nostalgic for, it's always positive in your memory, but the reality was significantly more dated, more tarnished. Of course, I don't want to see 20,000 jobs just disappear overnight or even the course over the year. There's a lot of people that work at GameStops. I know someone that's still, from my retail days, working or was working at GameStop until very recently. His store shut down. He had like 20 years at GameStop. They treated him decently well. He loved that store. Gone. So yeah, there is a lot of sadness involved with seeing the company go away. However, while I don't necessarily want to sound like I'm kicking this man that I know when he's down, the writing has been on the wall for years at this point. And you have to kind of open your eyes a little bit if you're working at the store and realize you need to get out while the getting is still good. While you might be able to find something at your own leisure, rather than showing up to the store on Friday and being told, hey, we're closing this weekend. Pack your shit and get out. Which is more or less what happened to my friend. So if you were working at a GameStop, understand that is just a job. If you have been there for years, I get it is hard to transfer out, in which case, please start actively looking for another place to work. Right now. Actively start looking today for another place to work, because GameStop is not going to exist. And I know I have said that for what feels like a couple years now at this point. But the bill is due. They're going bye-bye. One more take a look at chat here before we wrap things up. 3 years ago, GameStop got its fate sealed when the hedge fund crisis happened. They cannot keep going anymore. The GameStop stonks thing back, what was it, 2020 when that hit, or maybe 2021, when their stock soared way up. That was their one chance to try to do something because they had so much cash getting infused in their company. And they squandered it. They fucked it. So now it is time to pay the piper. With that final story, that does it for the news, which means we've also reached the end of the show as well. This has been GamePoints 392. Thank you all for showing up. I do stream this live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time right here, Twitch TV/GamePoints. Can't join us live, please do so at any myriad video hosting platforms, YouTube, BitChute, Rumble, etc. And feel free to leave any questions, comments, concerns. I want to know what you guys think about these stories on hand here. If you like what you saw here, you know what to do. Like, splits, follow, sub, shares, etc. You know what streamers want. You can follow me on X at CapitalistPig21, and you can join our Discord group, link provided down there, along with all the stories that we talked about as well. I do also stream throughout the week too, so come on by, hang out. I've been working my way through Classified 44, a World War II strategy game. Interesting enough, since we were talking about Company of Heroes earlier. And probably hop on that Stellaris train soon again. I'm starting to kind of crave it, but we have the expansion coming out. Might wait till then. Anyways, thank you all for showing up. This has been GamePoints. Till next week, I'm out of here.